So the title of my presentation is Mobile Researcher and Inaccessible Field. So what I'm trying to do here is to deconstruct the notion of field as such. So like most of us, the pandemic has stopped me from collecting new data, which has led to revisiting the ethnographic data, which I have collected earlier. And this paper is a result of that process. So my presentation is roughly in 4 parts, where the first part I question where is the field, and second part I try to, it's a autoethnographic self-interpretation of production of knowledge with respect to the question of where is the field. And then I present field is here and now, and then I will conclude very, very briefly. So this is the map which I have used in countless presentations as a quick means to introduce my field, which are the 2 cities, the city of Delhi and city of Colombo. Well, this paper is to rethink this. Why so? Because now I live in Florence, and I'll start with one incident, because lack of time I can only explain one. On the first day of July in this year, I woke up with no water coming out of the apartment taps in Florence. It was the high heat of Florence's summer, with a 3-week-old infant in the house and no water to drink. There was some billing issues between the landlord, who did not live in the building, and the water supplying agency. So our domestic water supply was cut without notice in peak summer, with no explanation or alternative for 3 days. The irony of this is that in Florence, water, both still and sparkling, are provided for free of charge through public taps. Now, this incident reminded me of a similar case in a slum of Delhi, which I was studying in 2015. So rather than cutting off the water supply, the technician there responsible for opening the water valves to the settlement stopped working. He had some conflict with the community. So the water supply system is a little different. In this particular settlement, the water comes 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. So the technician who supposed to open the motors in these 2, or open the water valves during these 2 hours, used to come and regularly open it and close it very religiously as per his duties. But there were electricity cuts, power cuts, which led to reduced quantity of water coming. So the technician would come, open it for 2 hours, but the community will not get water because there is no electricity, problems like that, which were out of the control of the technician. So when the community confronted, there was a conflict. So in the end, the technician said, okay, I'm not going to work there. So he refused to go there, and he could do that, saying that his safety is at danger, and not getting into the details of it. His refusal to go to work in the area left the community waterless. So at that point, I was studying informal practice and communities negotiation with the water authority and how they managed to get the water back. But my experience in Florence of the Florence water cut evoked me to revisit my field notes and reanalyze how the community in Delhi coped with their water cut. In a sense, how did they manage without water? There is, of course, a difference in position, which I should highlight here, that I am much more privileged, could take a hotel room when there was no water in the apartment, and I had the social means to make the landlord pay for those hotel bills. So there's a difference in position here. But this paper is not about access to water or positionality, but the formation of research question by centering the researcher. Basically, the question which I went back to my field data to look for is, how did the community manage when there was a water cut? So to recenter the researcher in this whole gamut of things, let us look at the production of knowledge from fieldwork in an abstract manner. So there is a researcher who goes to field and then comes out with data. So there is a researcher and data, which is analyzed and churned in through multiple ways, and knowledge is produced amongst other things. So in this very abstract and very pithy diagram, which shows a very linear fashion of knowledge production, the field becomes the most important factor, because that's where you collect your data, which later leads to knowledge. And there is a lot of input in the methodological discourses on how to reduce the biases, how to be objective while the researcher is in the field. So there's discussion on positionality, there is the classic confirmational biases, how to objectively collect data, recording without omission, and all those things. But with this paper, I want to take the focus off the field and put it back on the researcher. So to put it in a direct way, when I was relooking at my data, I was asking the question, how did the community cope without water supply? That question actually came from my experience in Florence, and I was looking for the data from Delhi. So this is where I asked the question of where is the field? Why do I call Delhi as my field if my questions are arising from Florence? I don't do field work in Florence to point that. And this is inspired from or paraphrased from the Kamarov and Kamarov's questioning, where they ask, if we are not sure where or what the field is, how to circumscribe the things in which we interest ourselves, wherein lie the ways and means by which we are to make the knowledge with which we vex ourselves. Now, this, of course, is from an field perspective of anthropology. So they take ethnography as their core domain. Nonetheless, it's quite applicable in the way we as geographers do field work. So the questions, this leads to multiple questions. One which I would like to point is that the concerns of the researcher becomes the concerns of the field. This again, I modify it from the Southern theory discussion in urban studies, where the concerns of the center of power becomes concerns of the periphery. So the field and the data as constructed by the researcher, not visited or collected. So the field is constructed. So this, to give a very crude example of this from the Southern theory perspective, is there is a lot of research, for example, on the question of why the Tasmanians don't eat fish. So there is available fish, but the Tasmanians don't eat it in the past, the Aboriginal Tasmanians. And this is primarily because fish is an acceptable food for the European colonizers. So when they came and they saw abundant fish available in the area and the locals not eating it, this became a research question as to why Tasmanians did not eat fish. And it's to this day, it continues as a debate on how and why this happens. On the other hand, the same colonizers who came to India did not ask the question why Indians did not eat elephants. Elephants, because it was not an acceptable food for the colonizers. So in that sense, if you put it back to the field, so if my research questions are derived out of Florence, why is Delhi and Colombo my field? And in the sense, is it not ethnocentric? Like, is it not my concerns which I am putting as a research question and posing in the field rather than and collecting data from the field rather than constructing it out of the field? Now, to look at the PT schema, which we have gone back again, what I'm suggesting is to not cut off the field, definitely not, but to increase the boundaries of what the field is and to include the researcher in what we call the field. So the researcher and the data site together becomes the field. And I borrow this from Mignolo's notion of knowledge as biopolitically and geopolitically constituted. That is, it is not about being objective in the field or collecting details, but the knowledge has a bearing on elsewhere where the researcher is biopolitically embedded. And we seem to evade that, especially in the context of now when COVID is happening and we all seem to agree that we don't have access to field. I would like to block that notion that no, we are where we are biopolitically located because the field is constantly being generated by us. So where we are matters on how we construct the notion of field. To conclude, so basically, I want to make 2 points, is the centrality of disparate non-topical explorations elsewhere in ethnography. That is, I don't do field work in Florence, but Florence become my field without doing a data collection because it influences the questions which I asked from the traditional notion of my field in Delhi and Colombo, and to enunciate the location from where the question arises, irrespective of thick or thin description. The ethnographic nature of ethnography need to be highlighted, which Tobias highlighted from where we speak to the question of locationality. And also Astrid pointed out in the beginning of the colonial notion of ethnography, it does not end with just the colonialism as a structural, but the researcher and the location of the researcher. So I'll stop there. Thank you.